So, but we'll start in about 10 minutes.
Happiness digger, I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the People Strategy Forum podcast. So we're a show that guides leaders to elevate the workforce. We believe that people are at the heart of the successful organizations, and team members' well-beings, the reward, career development are all essential to a happy, healthy, and productive workforce overall. So this show discusses the practical and effective leadership strategies for our top executives, senior professionals, and talent managers. And I know we have a lot of our hosts here today, so I want to recognize Howard Niswitz. Howard is a seasoned compensation advisor and HR consultant who has got over 20, or I guess 30, sorry, Howard, 30 years of experience. And so Howard is been a colleague of mine for quite some time. We've worked at Barclays together a while back, but he's got a lot of experience with those larger organizations and brings a great set of questions and perspective from that perspective, I guess you could say. We also have Shar Miller with us today. Shar is what I call a serial entrepreneur. She is a busy woman with not only a chief HR officer herself, and has done that through history or her past career. She's also has a couple of small businesses in play, including Mountain and Sea Career Strategy and then also Mountain and Sea Health Advocacy. And so she's brings that small business perspective and the employee interface piece as well. And then in addition, we have Sumit Singla. And so Sumit is from India. He's got a large pedigree of consultancy from Aon and so forth. And he brings an international perspective to the ideas that we're talking about today. So I'm very pleased to have all of them on the show today. So my name, once again, is Sam Reeve. I am the managing consultant of CompTeam, and CompTeam is a compensation consulting company, and we also consult in talent management aspects as well. And so I'm very pleased to bring the People Strategy Forum to you. So today we're going to be diving into a topic that can be a real game changer for your organization, transitioning from mere wellness programs to creating a full-blown culture of well-being. And who's better to take us through that journey than Andreea Papp? So I'm happy to have her on here. She's the founder of the Happiness Digger and a positive psychology practitioner. So Andreea is an expert that you've been waiting for on this topic. She is not just another speaker. She's a workshop wizard. She has these great workshops that I think that you would love to learn about. She'll tell us a little bit about that towards the end of the show today. And her mission is to empower your teams to be happier and more engaged. And let's face it, to be more engaged and more awesome in then how they contribute to the organization. So she combines hard science with this infectious energy. Andreea offers a fresh perspective on integrating that happiness into your company DNA. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. First, I'd love to start off with just talking to you, Andreea, about a little bit of how did you get into this practice? I mean, tell us about your journey. How did you get here?
Thanks, Sam, and well, everyone, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. So how did I start it? Well, to be honest, it's something that always interested me on the side. I landed on a corporate job a bit by mistake and kind of fell in love with the industry. You mentioned before Barclays. I actually worked in payments for over 10 years. I kind of landed there by mistake, wanting to do an internship in marketing, and kind of fell in love with payments. I was like, oh my God, this world is so thrilling, and stayed there for over 10 years. But on the side, I kind of always worked on my own well-being, and I obviously recognize the importance that this topic has, and the things that unfortunately we haven't been taught in school, or even in university later in my career, how to manage yourself, to understand your mind, to understand your emotions, and to really be able to leverage what you have to bring to the organizations, leverage your strengths, leverage in this case my passion is something that some people see as something that I need to kind of take care of, but for me that was something that I always wanted to harness. So I really personally just wanted as an individual to get better, understand how can I use things to my advantage, and really be my best self at work. But later in my career, I kind of realized that this has real value, so I started integrating it into my workplace. So I was really part of our Talk About People group, where we did initiatives for our people. I was part of the Culture Council, really trying to bring as much knowledge and as much expertise, and really trying to put together activities that will make employees happier, feel more engaged, feel happier at the work, and obviously ultimately be more productive and really bring their best selves. So that's kind of how it started, but it wasn't really until COVID that I actually realized the power that this knowledge holds, because at a very obviously hard time in history, I realized that I had the tools, and I had been using the tools for a long time that were easy for me to apply in such a circumstance. And for the majority of people, was kind of the first time that they were like, oh, I actually need to take care of my well-being, I need to go on walks, and I need to meditate. But it's like wanting to learn how to fix a tire after it blew up on the highway. You can give it a try, and some people will manage, but at that time you have just so much going on that you're not in the best shape to actually take in new content and actually action it, and for example, fixing the tire. So for me, it's all about having the knowledge ahead of time. So I really focus on kind of this preventive phase, where what's good for you, what makes you happy, what's helps you in situations of a lot of stress, etc. And when those situations happen, then you're well equipped to take care of them and go through them as well as you can. So it was really during COVID that I realized, okay, this really needs to be something bigger than what I was doing with it at the time. And that's kind of how Happiness Digger started, and I started doing work with other companies, and eventually transitioned out of my corporate career to do this full time, and it's been a blast. I've enjoyed helping companies since on really getting their teams and their employees equipped with the knowledge first, but then the tools to really be their best selves and be happy at work.
Yeah, so let's dive into that first, the knowledge and then the tools. But first of all, the big thing is that when our listeners are out there thinking about wellness programs, that sounds so clinical, right? So we're really talking about happiness, and so what is the? I mean, we've heard about the a wellness movement, especially in the mindfulness after the pandemic and so forth, that really brought it to the forefront. But what are you seeing as being some of the top issues in companies today regarding wellness and happiness?
Well, to be honest, it's a very strange time. We are really kind of a bit of at the crossroads. On one hand, I think organizations and individuals kind of have realized that this is important, that they have to invest in this, that they have to pay attention to this. But at the same time, it's an area that is still underinvested. So, it's kind of, we have now the awareness, but it's lacking a bit the action. And when you were talking about wellness programs, I really think like it's I would say typical things that we see in companies, that like gym subscription, or you have a yoga class every now and then, or you bring in someone that will give massages because employees are stressed, but that's really kind of an ad hoc intervention. And while it can help in the moment, that day or maybe that week, it's not something that, long term will have an impact. So I think the biggest problem at the moment is that, we need to be more strategic and really put in place kind of end-to-end programs that will address the issue of well-being. So rather than having ad hoc interventions that, you do, I don't know, based on, I don't know, something comes up in the calendar, you see, oh, it's International Mindfulness Day, let's bring someone to do some meditation, it's a great initiative, but in itself, it won't have such a great impact. So it's really about putting in place a strategy. And I always say, the same way you plan your financial year and you plan ahead of time what products you're going to develop, where you're going to put your money, how, your sales strategy, what targets are you going after the next year. It's the same with the well-being strategy. You really need to plan that ahead of time. It has to be, strategic. It has to sit at the core of the organization, and then it has to be executed throughout the organization. And well, kind of on the back of that, I think there is maybe even an earlier problem to that, which is that organizations, even today, they usually rely on one or maybe maximum two like pulse surveys that they do, So imagine an organization that will take the polls to, let's say 3,000 employees once a year. And based on that, they will try to put in place a strategy or try to do things for the next 12 months. It's so irrelevant in, today's, fast-paced world. What is happening today, it's not what's going to happen next month or in 3 months or in 6 months. So I think for me, that's kind of like underlying issue that leaders unfortunately don't know what's happening in the organization. Imagine telling a CFO or a CEO or a GM, whomever is responsible of a P&L, that, well, you can see your numbers once a year, and then go ahead and, work for the rest of the year and see if you're going to make your target. As someone that was responsible of numbers, I would check my numbers every week, and every month I would like deep dive into my numbers to see like, okay, what's really happening? Where is it going well? Where is it not going well? But in this case, organizations aren't doing that with their main resource, with their people, which are really the ones that are behind, the numbers or achieving, I don't know, developing a product, etc. So I think it starts with taking the pulse to the organization more often. I would say ideally on a weekly basis, rather than having, 50 questions. Just ask a question, how happy have you felt at work this week? And it's more valuable to know how people are feeling over time across the organization, rather than taking, a very large survey once a year, because there are so many things that can impact how you're answering that survey in that, very specific moment. Maybe you really had the worst week, maybe, I don't know, client went away, or, you had a delay in the product, a bug, whatever, maybe it was really the worst week that you had in the year. And if you have to answer that survey that week, it's going to be, unfortunately, more on the negative side. It's not really reflecting the reality. So I would say start by really taking the pulse to the organization on a regular basis. Even if it's more questions, one question a week for, an entire year, and then put in place a strategy, and you put in place an end-to-end program and what you're going to do across the organization.
Yeah, I know there's software companies out there that help do like text polling, sending out a text to employees. I think Lumos was one of them. I don't know if you use a particular platform to do that regular polling, but it's something that's real time. You get it across on your text, and it comes at various times of the week, and so you answer it based on, and so you kind of rule out those those good day, bad day type of things over time. So that makes sense. But I would love to go back to a little bit of that. You were talking about planning. Executives should be planning around wellness, especially let's just face it, what's going on this year and around the globe. And frankly, we may have more years like that, just because of the demographic issues and so forth that we're facing. The economy might be struggling for quite some time. And so a lot of companies are saying, okay, we don't have a lot of money in the budget for compensation and pay this year. And, and we know that people are going to be under stress because of the economy and what's going on. And so we need to think about how to help our people stay engaged, how to help them through this time. And so what should they be planning for on the wellness side? How can they plan? Can you take us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned compensation, because that's something that people always think is the number one driver. And, people will be kind of thinking of compensation and want compensation. Of course, fair compensation, it's the basis, you have to pay fairly. But once that's in place, actually compensation, there are plenty of studies all over the world, it's not the number one driver of people, feeling engaged at work or wanting to stay in the company, staying in the company and performing at their best. It's actually belonging. And again, it's a very broad kind of concept, but I think it starts with something at the core that is really the purpose, and really giving people purpose, and really giving them something that it's more than, well, you work so we can make money, which is kind of the ultimate goal of all companies, is really giving them that sense of why are you doing what you're doing. And I always kind of share the example of my own experience when I was working during COVID in this large corporate. I was working with the airline industry, which, as you can imagine, was like the worst industry to work with. It was chaotic. There was so much going on. They had their planes grounded. It was a lot. But I really found my why, not in what the company was doing on a large scale, but on what myself and my account teams were doing, which was helping those airlines, first fly when possible, help repatriate people, take people back to their loved ones, take people, back to their families. And it was just such a for me and for my account teams, such a great way to stay focused, to stay engaged, and to work. I have to say many hours, more than I would work on a normal schedule. But I really found this why, and I really realized that what we were doing, getting money back to people, people that were asking for refunds, it was so important in a period that, everyone was maybe, losing their jobs or needed money to take care of loved ones, etc. Getting that money back to them was so important. So for me, organizations really need to focus more on this and really create the why. And it's not just the vision and the mission statement and you have some values around that. It really, you have to make it so that it's kind of living and breathing through the organization, and everyone understands their contribution to the work, how they are contributing to their team, to their larger like group in the organization, and maybe ultimately to the organization as a whole. It's kind of the core of every business wanting to do something around belonging. You really have to make sure that that's in place. And after that, as I said, it really has to be something that kind of lives and breathes in the organization. You have to make sure that belonging, it's something that people really feel. And this question that Gallup has in the poll, that at the start people thought like, this is a funny question, like where they ask, do you have a best friend at work? It's so indicative of people staying in the organization. It's actually, I think they were saying it's the number one indicator when it comes to retention. So something as simple as do you have someone at work that you really relate to very well? It's something that leaders sometimes don't pay attention to, but it's critical. So that's, let's say, belonging is kind of what they should focus, given that compensation might be a challenge, and it's really working on the why and working on creating a space where teams connect. And nowadays it's even more important. I find that both things are kind of hard to do in a virtual environment. Lots of people kind of lose their sense of why because they are sitting in their own room or at the dining table, and they are working on this little piece of work that they have to do, and they kind of don't don't have visibility on the, bigger piece, on how they are contributing to the organization. And yeah, again, connecting on this virtual hybrid environment is sometimes a bit harder. And that's where, leaders really can play a role to really bring everyone together and create the space and create also the time in the agenda of people to really connect on a different level. And that's biggest part of my work is really bringing people together, connecting teams, and giving them the time and the space to do something where they learn, they connect with each other, they have fun, and ultimately walk away with some tools that they can use later on.
And so can you tell us a little bit more what that looks like? I mean, and from the virtual sense, I mean, I know that right now we're in the remote age where a lot of the workforce is remote. And you mentioned one thing about, well, Gallup asked this question, do you have a friend at work? Well, if you're working remote, you may have a friend at work, but they're still over a Zoom call away or whatever platform you might use. Is there a way that is more effective for remote companies or companies that are remote first to help and encourage that engagement, that sense of belonging?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's a bit of a shift in mindset again when it comes to how do you come together. You can come together, to a meeting, and you can chit chat for 5 minutes. Okay, how are you? And everyone will say fine, and you fine. And then 5 minutes go by and you kind of haven't really done any conversation. You haven't really connected with people. But you can also come to the meeting and say, hey, let's go around the room and tell me what's the best thing of this week or this month, or tell me one thing that you're proud of this week. What have you achieved last week? What was your biggest aha moment last week? What did you learn? And you really create a space in which people really connect. And it's a bit, I would say, maybe uncomfortable at first, because you think like, maybe it's a bit too sensitive, maybe people will feel like, I don't want to share. But the reality is that if you really come and, you have a genuine kind of willingness to learn about people and to make sure that they have the space to connect with each other, people are so open to sharing, and, beautiful conversations come out of this kind of little moments. And it doesn't have to be much. Like I remember once I was doing an exercise and I was asking people to bring, the thing that they love the most. And someone brought a picture of themselves with their dad and the rose. And then they told the story about this picture. And I kid you not, like everyone was in tears. It was such a beautiful story that, you wouldn't have known otherwise. But I created the space, and people are usually so eager to open. They want to, to connect with others. It's in our nature. You just have to give them the space.
Yeah. And from as an American, there's sometimes Americans are so, especially in the United States, they're so driven to get things done from a work perspective, and so sometimes when you bring up, let's share these moments so we can connect more, there's almost a sense, I mean, as a leader, I mean, am I wasting people's time? Are they gonna accept this as something that's part of team building? But what is your thoughts, Sumit? I'd love to hear your perspective on the different cultures that you've interacted with. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I've encountered also some very cynical people. Let's put it, right out there. It really, I mean, it comes, I would say, for me, it's always two angles. First, give them the knowledge, and that's kind of what I also do with my workshops. I show them, the data, like, I show them case studies, I show them how their productivity, which is something that we're all worried about, it's so impacted by, well-being. And I think, once you kind of show some data and you talk a bit about it, they are like, oh, I actually see, when I'm, tired or in a bad mood, I don't have a good day. and it's because the two are so interlinked. Like, you can't expect that, you're in a bad mood, you're angry, you're frustrated, and at the same time you're productive and you're doing your best work and you're being creative and innovative. So I always try to show them the data, talk about some research. I love Barbara Fredrickson that talks about positivity and how it really opens our awareness, and it broadens our vision, and how we really take in more and we're more creative. So I like to tell people a bit of the research, a bit of the science, a bit of the data of how this actually helps their productivity. And then I really like to get people to do stuff. Even if they don't start necessarily very eager to do stuff, I really like to get people to experience the things, to do the exercises, to do the different interventions. And by the end of the session, they all walk away with the realization, well, I actually, do feel better, even if I maybe arrived at the session stressed or angry or frustrated. I'm definitely leaving in better spirits. I feel better. I'm kind of ready for work now. So I think it's a bit of taking people through that journey, and it's obviously sometimes it's the realization comes sooner, sometimes later, but I would say all people will leave, at the end of an hour of a workshop with the realization that maybe there is something there. Maybe I should try to give it a go. And I think that's something that, we kind of underestimate, but we don't know what we don't know, right? So, there are many things that are good for us, many things that have been tested and, researched and really have a positive impact, but not all of them are very intuitive. So if you don't have the knowledge, it's really quite hard to actually put it in practice. So that's how I go about it. I really, give them the research, the data, give them kind of the knowledge, and then I give them the actual doing so they can really experience how it feels in their body, and how, leaving the session, they are, kind of ready to go for the day.
What do you think, Sumit?
Those are interesting ideas. And from an international perspective, I think at a deeper level, people are the same everywhere. And as an employee, my ask from an employer or from colleagues would be very simple. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Based on what you see and hear, will you act on what you've seen and heard? And that's essentially all there is to well-being. So if I feel invisible and nobody really cares, that's a lack of inclusion. And if you're not listening to me, lack of psychological safety and lack of trust. And of course, if you're not acting on what the needs of a person are, it would definitely impact well-being. So the difference which I have seen is in many cultures, and especially in the Asian side of things, a person may not be very upfront and very candid, especially with a senior person. So when you're dealing with folks across hierarchies, you might just be a little hesitant, and you kind of assume that the person is a leader. They should have enough sense to figure out what I require. So they may not be as upfront and as clear as, say, an American is likely to be. And that can be a challenge in cross-cultural management when you've got, say, an American leader who's managing, say, an Indian workforce, because the American leader might assume that if they've got a problem, they'll come to me and talk to me. And simply saying, you're free to walk up to me is not going to make a big difference, because people are a lot more respectful of hierarchy and they don't really want to rock the boat. So leaders need to figure out how to look for signs. And the idea we discussed earlier about regular listening sessions or regularly collecting feedback, I think that goes a long way in making the intent clear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, managers need to really, direct managers really need to be tuned into their employees. You're interacting with them on a regular basis, and we all know everyone goes through stuff in their lives. And if someone's having situation, a personal situation, whatever, it's going to, as you said before, Andreea, impact their performance. But how do you get managers to tune in and then to act upon it? Because so often it's like, well, keep your personal stuff at home, and no one wants to, or people think they're afraid to say, oh, my father is sick, or my child is sick, or I'm going through a horrible divorce, or whatever. How do you get people to feel comfortable at sharing that information, and then also getting managers to react and accommodate people that need assistance?
Yeah, very, very interesting question. I think it's a great point that you're making there, because for I would say maybe 100 years, we've kind of left mental health or problems, outside work problems, at the door, and get into the business and do the work, and then you can deal with your problems later. And it really, it also, because we're now working from home, everything is really, there is no more like work and life, it's really just life, and work happens in between. So it really, that integration is there physically and metaphorically, and I think it's really, unfortunately, I have to say, thanks to COVID, that we kind of realized that we need to talk about these problems. What people go through really impacts their work. And I think COVID really had such a negative impact on so many people's life at such a large scale, that it was kind of obvious that we need to talk about it. We can't just leave it at the door. We need to, support our people. And I think, lots of organizations did a great work during that time. But it really comes down to having leaders equipped to have those conversations. And I have to say, unfortunately, I don't think this was leaders' job, until very recently. You wanted to know that the person was happy on the job, that they were doing well, that, they were performing well, that they didn't have any difficulties. Maybe you were working with them on some personal development, what they wanted to go in their career. But that was pretty much it. I don't think they historically, really dealt with, how are you feeling? What are your, stress levels? How much anxiety you have? And I think it starts with actually training, the leaders, and really giving them, again, the knowledge and the tools to deal with these situations, and to recognize the signs. I think that's the most important thing, to recognize the signs, and either intervene themselves, or direct them to someone else that can help them, to either an external professional, or maybe the company's assistance. And I see some leaders already doing that. Like, I do have an example where a leader referred someone to me just by saying, hey, I see, this is, you're having a hard time. Would you not want to talk to, I know, Andreea? Would you not want to talk to her, see how it's going? And, we're still talking today. So it's really about leaders recognizing those signs. And it doesn't, you don't have to have all of the knowledge as a leader. I think that's another, big burden to put on leaders that are already very stretched. And unfortunately, the data, if you look at stress levels and burnout levels for leaders, are also at an all-time high. So it's very difficult to put the burden on them to be able to deal with these situations and helps solve a problem. But for them to recognize what's going on, for them to recognize that someone is feeling unwell, maybe has a bit more stress than usual, is feeling a bit more anxious than usual, and really point that out and have a conversation and offer a support for that person is kind of the first step. But it really starts with having the knowledge. And I think we do have still a lot of work to do in equipping the leadership with the knowledge. Overall, if you look at the amount of new leaders that are in the workforce, I think, from COVID on, you do see a lot of new leaders coming in, lots of new people that have been made, people managers, leaders, that was, well, I want to say, in a very stressful situations where, they had other priorities. And now they really need to catch up with, getting settled into the role and really understanding and having the knowledge to signal this type of things. But what Sumit was saying earlier, it's absolutely true. Like, if you don't have a psychological safe environment, and that's something that leaders should already be very well equipped to do. You're not going anywhere. That is really the foundation, and from there you can build. And having those conversations with your team and really picking up on the signals, and then going on to helping your employees.
Well, I love what you're saying. I'm a seasoned leader,
Well,
and I like, let's just call it seasoned. But you really got me thinking about this, because a lot of my HR background is in healthcare. Okay. And healthcare, is always a challenge for a leader. And, what you get me thinking about is, out of the hundreds of leaders that I spent a lot of time sitting around with leaders, and you have to think about the day in the life of a leader. So for example, a lot of feedback I got from leaders is, what are you talking about? I don't have time for one-on-ones. And so I'd ask them, when's the last time you had a one-on-one with your employee? And they'd say, let me look, I think 6 months ago or something. And I also noticed that, I was always at all these different meetings, the executive meetings, the board meetings, the manager meetings, the meeting. And a day of life of a leader is that every week they have, like, every Monday morning, there's the manager meeting. And then every Wednesday, there's the finance meeting. And then there's this meeting. And also every leader has got, I think we can all relate, 200 to 300, 400 emails a day. You talked about the email about wellness. They're skimming through it, delete. And then the paperwork, you're stuck in your office behind your desk, and your employee, and feedback I got from the employees is like, I never see my boss. I never see my boss. I work so hard. I don't even know what the CEO looks like this year, because it changes every couple of years, So what resonates with me, I think the responsibility from a talent management perspective is, as a talent management, guider of the organization, we really need to be cognizant of the time that we keep pulling the leader away from that one-on-one time with the employee, and structure that into the accountability. So one quick example, when I had my own company, and I think because I work with CompTeam and had a different perspective about talent management strategy, is that every single meeting, one, be very responsible about the number of meetings you're pulling your leaders into, one, but two, to structure those meetings. Yes. And here's what we did. One, talk about operations, talk about finance, talk about customer or patient or whatever. But in every meeting, we always should have a time for the people talk. And the time to really talk about wellness and how are you feeling at work, and the soft stuff. Because I have to say, no offense to my financial colleagues, it's some perspectives of senior leaders, is that the people stuff is just squishy and not important, and not, we need to be on target. We need productivity. We need a return on investment. And it was the softies like me that would say, no, the relationships are important. I mean, you should know that Sally's mom is in an intensive care unit, or George's son is, like you said, going off to college, or maybe having suicidal issues, and you don't need to get in from a HIPAA standpoint into their private information, but you darn well should know what's going on in your employee's life with what they are comfortable sharing with you. And so I love what you're saying. That was a big, long monologue. But I love what you're saying. It's a cultural aspect, and I think many of us cultural leaders, right? We need people like you to help us think out of the box and be more progressive, and really say, this does help us with our bottom line, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, there is so much data out there now. Like there is like no more doubt, like this like fluffy, well-being or, intangible, what is it? I mean, intuitively, you kind of know, like if you're feeling well, you're gonna do well. Like it's so intuitive, but in the business seems like, logic goes out of the window and everyone is like focused on the numbers, but the numbers really come from the people. Like the fact that you won't not take care of the people that generate the numbers. I mean, if the people are not there, the numbers won't be there. It's like just pure logic. And like nowadays, as I say, the data is there and there is so much research. There is a great research that came out just this year around how the best companies to work for, this kind of yearly ranking actually outperform the stock market, so if you are to invest, if you look to invest in these companies that are best places to work, they actually outperform the stock market. So it's not because they don't care about the numbers. Of course they do, but they care about the people. People vote these companies as being great places to work, so they feel well, they feel engaged, they feel happy at work, and as a consequence, like hard data, they are performing better in the stock market. So it's the data is there. This is just one of the studies, but there is also a great study that was done with BT call centers around the UK, and it's very fascinating because I think for the first time they really managed to get down and be very specific, and they actually measured how the weather, obviously we all know that when it's sunny outside we feel happier versus when it's not sunny outside, and they were able to measure based on how the weather was and how much exposure people got to the weather in the call centers, how productive they were. And the result was like really, it was unbelievable to see that actually they were much more productive when it was sunny outside, when they were exposed to the, to the sun in the call center. So when they had, lots of windows, to the point that they were able to get down to knowing that this type of people, that one day had sun versus the people that were in, not sunny place, did 12% more sales. And it's just such a small variable. Of course, you cannot influence weather, but the idea that, something that makes us feel happier has an impact on productivity and, increases sales by 12%. It's just like, hard data. You can't go around it.
I had a department, learning and development department, for example, and they all had the middle cubes in the middle where all the managers, directors has the outside cubes and no sunlight. So I totally agree with it. I want to ask you a quick question about your opinion on one other topic, because I can be really chatty. So I just want I have really been noodling on this because Sam and CompTeam had a AI executive conference for artificial intelligence and how that's really impacting talent management strategy. And I wanted to get your view on this as well, because to me, artificial intelligence can really free up, like you said, tracking the numbers, checking emails, streamlining time management so that our executives can spend more time sitting down with an employee and saying, sorry, you don't have a window. How can we help you have a better work environment, or whatever that is? So I feel that artificial intelligence is going to help free us up to build better bonding, to build better community, to actually have conversations, and the technology can deal with all that stuff that was taking all the time away from our leaders. And then the second comment is span of control, and really evaluating. I have a leader that has 40 to 50 employees. How can they reasonably meet with their people on a one-to-one too? So it's kind of a two-part comment. So what's your feelings about artificial intelligence, and then also how do managers or executives deal with span of control? What are your thoughts about that, Andreea?
So everything that has to do with workload management, it's very much welcome. I think all of the AI that is out there, I think it's going to be great for us to if used in the right way, Obviously, it also has the potential, to entangle us in some other things. But like a simple thing that I find, like, for example, nowadays fascinating is that I can, play my emails while I do something else in the house, and I don't have to read the emails. I can just play the emails. Like, imagine if, there is already, assistance to write replies back. If you don't have to type the, useless parts of the emails, where you're like just doing the bits at the start and at the front, and you really just want to put the content. Obviously, you can't just email, this is what I think. You really have to make it into a formal email. But if you have an assistant that can help you draft emails, that that maybe picks up on things that maybe you haven't, one of the I think the traps is when you have like lots of emails piled up and you have to go through all of them. What if AI can tell you, okay, these are the main points that are discussed in these 20 emails over the past 2 months, what do you want to reply? So I think it really has the capacity to free up a lot of our time. And I think workload management, it's again kind of basic. You cannot do other things when you have your CEO telling you to do the numbers or to prepare this report. So as much help as we can get with that, it will really free up the time. But then when it comes to how do you manage, you were saying if you're having like so many people under you, you have 40 employees, how can you manage that as a leader? I would say it is I think maybe time to think about the structure as well. Maybe 40 people under one leader, it's a bit too much. If you really want to have someone that cares about the employees, you really need to think like it's not about having as many employees as you can under you, which I guess traditionally was what people were looking for. So it's not quantity, it's quality. And I really think we need to change the mindset and look at, okay, how can we make sure that the leader really can take care of the people that they have in their teams? I think it's just so basic, but as you said, it gets overlooked because you get filled with meetings and not being a people leader, or being a leader and not having time for your people is kind of not ideal, to say the least. So hopefully we'll see a shift in how organizations operate, and really it should be a metric that all leaders are measured on. I think numbers, yes, that's a metric, but how are your people doing? And it's what I said again, it's not about taking the measure once a year. How were your people doing last month? Were your people engaged at work? Were they happy? Were they, did they have enough communication from you? Were they, in touch with you? Are you there to support them? Like I have to say, I was very lucky with the leaders that I had in my corporate career, but I had a particular leader that will always kind of stick in my mind. He was always there, like no matter, he was a very busy leader, but I knew that if I needed him, obviously we also had our one-to-ones, but if I needed him, he made the time to be there. I really felt that I was a priority for him. And it just feels so nice to know that, okay, I have a leader, and if I run into some trouble, if I need his support, his guidance, her guidance, if I need a second kind of pair of eyes to look at what I'm doing, my leader is there. Like, there is nothing more powerful than having the feeling that someone has my back. I have a leader that is, it's not the one that's saying, well, you worked very hard this month, well done, or you didn't meet your numbers, not so good. It's really someone that has your back, that is there when you need them, and it's there to support you, kind of no matter what your needs are, be it work related stuff or even personal stuff.
Love it. Thank you so much. I love these discussions. Thanks.
Thanks, Shar.
All right. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour, so I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge our sponsors and also to tell you about our book that we have on the workforce experience. And so Sumit and I wrote this over the past few years, and so want to make sure that we share this with you. It's available on Amazon in Kindle, so feel free to take a look at it there. Also, I want to acknowledge our sponsor, which is TMA USA, and we were just talking about getting to know your people more. And this is one of those assessments that you can use, and it's actually out of the Netherlands, Andrea. So it's designed to better know your people. It's based on positive psychology, like you were discussing, and so it can be a very impactful tool to learn about your people. If you're interested in taking a demo or would like to do an assessment with TMA, just let me know, and I'd love to take you through that. Also, I wanted to acknowledge our next week's speaker, which is another person that is local to Amsterdam. So this is one of your neighbors, Andrea. So,
I actually know Mary Jane.
Oh, great. Mary Jane I just met with her like a week ago, and she's going to be talking about resilient at every age and every stage. So a very important conversation around ensuring that we are not being biased against our older workforce, and we're leveraging them for the future, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this the show, demographics and the world demographics are not heading in a favorable direction, and for a lot of the developed countries. And so it's going to be important for us to harness the workforce. And our older workers that may be looking to retire, we're going to want them to work longer. So that's just kind of one of those necessary realities. So we're going to be asking them to stay in the workforce, and so understanding how they can be really help us address that workforce shortage is going to be critical. So she's going to talk to us about that. All right, so Andrea, I know that you had a few things that you wanted to share with our listeners as far as I know you have some great tools, and then also workshops. So can we tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So workshops are, the thing that I enjoy the most. I really, as I said, really like bringing the knowledge and the action to people, and really putting them like immersive in positive psychology, to really experience the benefits that it can bring, not only at work, because we talked a lot about work, but obviously we know that how you feel at work, really you're bringing that home no matter what, as much as you want to live it at work. That's simply not possible. So it's that's what I do. Workshops, I love doing workshops on mindset. I really think that's kind of the foundation of everything, what we were also discussing before. I really think empowering employees to really be in the right mindset, to take advantage of what leaders have to offer, what organizations have to offer, it's critical. So really working on the foundation, it's something that I always try to get in companies to start with, and really work on the mindset first. I do workshops on strengths. I think it's again one of those things that we haven't really been taught to really appreciate and to really leverage in our lives. We've always been taught that we need to look at our weaknesses, and we need to improve those areas of improvements. We really need to work on getting better at the things that we are not very good at, while the science is very clear, saying, well, you should know what your strengths are, you should build those up, you should strive to go from good to excellent, and that's where it will really make an impact in your career and in your personal life. And of course, again, like it goes back to productivity, when you're working really from your strengths, where you really do what you love, what you're good at, you're happier, you're more productive, and it's just this virtuous cycle. So I do also workshops on energy, and how to really make sure that we understand how to manage our energy, how to sustain our energy, how to recover, why rest, it's actually critical to make sure that you can sustain your performance throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, year, and many years to come. There is a lot to do for a very long period of time, and go now, it's really not sustainable for the long term. I do also workshops that are a bit more fun. So play is something that I really enjoy, and I think adults, we do very little of that. So I do workshops also on play and really trying to bring play into the workplace. I'm using also a game that's called Happiness. So it's an online game where we solve dilemmas, like workplace dilemmas, in a fun way using positive psychology solutions. And really it's a way to engage people in a conversation where nobody has to come up with a challenge or a problem that they are facing. They are simply, posing a dilemma that the system is showing them, and they together try to solve it. So those are kind of some of the things that I do. And I was also mentioning I do have a tool that I also encourage companies to use for the employees to gift, I don't know, for Christmas, for I don't know, maybe this week is the International Happiness at Work Week, Mental Health Day, whatever, just to give them another tool to use positive psychology and to act and really take care of their well-being. So I don't know if you can see very well, these are called happy action cards. And the idea is that you would have 52 cards inside the box, and you would use one card every week, and you would take action on your happiness. So it's really my, really intent to make it so that people have access to the knowledge in a simple way, and they can really do something that impacts their happiness. So you have things like cards on gratitude. So for example, the first one will be like offer a little token of appreciation to someone. So the idea is that you have to try every day for that week to offer a token of appreciation, and it's these small things that over time really accumulate and really impact your well-being. And the idea is also to make sure that people experience different things and they kind of build their own portfolio of solutions, things that work for them. Obviously, not everything will work for everyone, but it's important that you try and you really realize, okay, actually, I did this and it felt really great. Maybe I should incorporate it in my routine, or maybe, I should do it more often. So I do offer this on my website, which is Happiness Digger, and I do have a special discount code, which is happiness. So if you want to get yours, it's 30% off with the code happiness.
Well, thank you so much. That's a great time. So I'm going to make sure I get myself a set for sure. Happiness.
I feel happier already.
I know.
Yeah, I love the idea. It's awesome. Great idea.
Thanks both.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you all, and I hope that you are living a bit happier, inspired, maybe ready to take a bit of action.
Yes.
Yeah, and get some
absolutely.
sunshine. Get some sunshine.
Yes.
With sunscreen.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
All
thank
right.
you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see you next week in the People Strategy Forum. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Andreea.
everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.